Hola a todos, hoy vamos a aprender a disculparnos en español. Today we are going to learn how to apologize in Spanish. Now I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the expression lo siento. It is probably the most general expression that we can use when we want to apologize, but there are more expressions that we can use, and the other expressions will vary according to context, but lo siento, even though it may be the most popular expression, it is not applicable to every situation, because if you want to get someone's attention, for example, you're not going to say, Señor, lo siento. No, that would sound very odd. So we're going to learn the other expressions today so that you have a variety to choose from, right? So as I said, there are several ways to apologize in Spanish, and the appropriate expression will depend on the context. So let's start with the most well-known, which is lo siento. That translates as I'm sorry, but literally it is derived from the verb sentir, which is to feel, so it literally means I feel it. Therefore, we use lo siento to express empathy, okay? When we want to empathize with others, we use lo siento. So, condolences, misfortune, bad situations, all right? Serious matters where we want to comfort another person, right? Or show other persons that we care, we will say lo siento. For example, acabo de enterarme de que mi amigo tiene cáncer. I have just found out that my friend has cancer. Just imagine that someone said this to you. What would you tell them? Lo siento. I am sorry. Because obviously that is devastating news, and that person would feel very sad about that, right? So we can say lo siento. And if you want to add a degree, we could say lo siento mucho, right? I am very sorry. That's right. So when we want to express empathy for others, we use lo siento. And this is not apologizing for a wrongdoing. In fact, in this case, it is actually not your fault when we say lo siento, right? So lo siento is for empathy. Now, lo lamento is just a higher degree, right? It means the same thing as lo siento, which is I'm sorry. So both of those expressions are used for more serious matters, right? Such as condolences, misfortune, etc. Lo siento. So another example, let's say someone tells you, mi madre falleció ayer. My mother died yesterday. Oh, lo siento mucho. Or lo lamento. Okay? Good. Dos, perdón. Perdón. That can mean, or that can translate as sorry or excuse me, but let's look at the context. So we use it for small mistakes or accidents, interruptions, repetition, and offending. I'll explain, okay? So small mistakes or accidents. Let's say you accidentally bump into someone in the street, you step on someone's toe, etc., right? You know, small stuff like that where, pardon, yeah, where it is unintentional, right? So we would use perdón for that, all right? But let's look at the example. No, before we get to the example, let me explain the other context. So yeah, small mistakes, accidents, like stepping on someone's toe, bumping into someone, stuff like that, right? Interruptions. Let's say that the person's having a conversation and you want to interrupt them to maybe ask a question. You can use perdón to interrupt, for politeness, right? You don't just interrupt and ask whatever you have to ask. You say perdón, right? Repetition. Now, with repetition, this could be if you do not hear what someone says. You know how in English we would say, pardon me? So this would be the equivalent. Sorry, right? We would ask, perdón? If someone asks something or says something and we do not understand them or we do not hear them, we would ask, perdón? Right. And then offended. I say offended because sometimes someone may say something to you, you hear them, you understand them, but you are maybe taken aback by the audacity of that person to say or ask whatever it is that they did, right? So if someone says to you, or maybe someone insults you or says something like, tú no tienes ningún dinero, you have no money, and you say, perdón? As in, sorry? Or excuse me? Because you're expressing that you're offended by the statement. Yeah. Tú no tienes ningún dinero. Perdón? Right. So it'll be the same way in English that we would say sorry or excuse me. You don't believe the audacity of that person, right? So let's look at the example. Perdón. ¿Qué dijiste? Sorry, what did you say? Because we lack context in this case, this could be applied to repetition, or it could actually be a case of showing offense, that you're offended by whatever the person said, right? So these are the situations in which we use perdón. Now, perdón is a neutral term, so you can use that with anyone, whether it's formal or informal. Now, these ones here, perdona, perdone, perdóname, perdóneme. This means forgive me, right? As you see with the last two, we've utilized the object pronoun, right? So these all translate as sorry and excuse me, but we would more use the translation of forgive. So we want to say forgive me, right? We can say perdona. This would be the to form. If we're talking to someone that we know, perdone. This is someone that we don't know. Perdóname. This is the to form again. And perdóneme. This is the usted form, okay? So that's just a variation, but that would mean to forgive me. But if you just want to say like sorry or excuse me, and we want to use a neutral term, you could say perdón. Muy bien. Sigamos. Number 3, or número 3. Disculpa. Now, disculpa is very similar to perdón, yeah? The only difference is that we would use disculpa to get someone's attention, but all the other contexts, all the contexts that we use perdón in, we can use disculpa, okay? So it also translates as excuse me or sorry. Small mistakes or accidents. If I bump into someone, I would say disculpa, right? Well, yeah, disculpa is the to form, but we'll get to that. To get someone's attention. Now, if we want to stop someone, like how we would say, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me, sir, this is the expression, right? And departure. The departure and offended. So departure, let's say I am at the table and I want to leave, or I get a phone call and I want to, depart from where I'm at, then I could use disculpa, right? And then same way about offended. If someone says something and I either do not understand what they said, or not that I don't understand, either I heard what they said and it offended me, or I didn't hear what they said, then I can ask, disculpa? Right, I can do that. So I said that the difference was laid in I said the difference between the two was the fact that disculpa was used to get someone's attention, but also for departure. If you're leaving and you want to just say, excuse me, we can use disculpa, right? So let's look at the example. Disculpa, ¿dónde está la biblioteca? Excuse me, where is the library? So this is how we would get someone's attention. We wouldn't say lo siento. No, we would say disculpa, ¿dónde está la biblioteca? But let's look at the variants now. So disculpa would be the to form. Disculpe would be the usted form. Discúlpame, just like perdón, right, would be the to form. Just like perdóname, sorry, perdón. And discúlpeme would be the usted form. So these, we can consider these more emphatic, right? That's right. So let's say, again, you stepped on someone's toes in the street, you would say, disculpe, señor, right? Or discúlpeme, right? Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Right. So perdón and disculpa are very similar, as you can see. And you can, in those situations, you can almost use them interchangeably, right? And número 4, con permiso or permiso, which is excuse me, and that is used to request space. So let's say you want persons to make way or to move out of your way. It's a respectful manner to say move, right? So we say con permiso or permiso. Con permiso, necesito pasar. Excuse me, I need to pass. You're not going to say disculpa. No. You would say con permiso in that situation to say, well, excuse me, because you want to pass. So you need the persons to move, and you want to say in a respectful manner, right? So con permiso or permiso, necesito pasar. Muy bien. So these are the 4 ways that we apologize in Spanish. Now, I forgot to mention, how do we actually say, what is the verb to apologize in Spanish? So we have 2 expressions. We have pedir perdón, or we have disculparse, right? So those are the 2 ways we can say, we can express to apologize in Spanish, okay? Muy bien, eso es todo por hoy. Muchas gracias por ver y nos vemos.